Welcome to the Unapologetic Podcast with Kaitlyn Talamonte, hosted by LadyBoss. This is a space where women rise, own their power, and stop playing small. We get real, we get raw, and we get fired up about confidence, health, business, and life. If you're ready to step into who God made you to be and unapologetically live your best life, then girl, you are in the right place. Let's do this.
This is what unapologetic looks like.
This is my era. I'm walking boldly in my purpose. I'm done dimming my light.
I'm done playing small. God didn't create me to blend in. I'm not for everyone, and that's okay. The old me was surviving. The new me is free.
We rise together.
Here's to living life unapologetically. Hi, ladies. Today's episode is going to be for every woman who's ever felt like she's doing all the things all the time. The marketing, the sales, the sports, the pickups, the drop-offs, the late nights, but still wondering, why does it feel so hard? My guest today, Michelle Terpstra. Did I say that right? I butchered it. Michelle, what is it?
Terpstra.
I'm so sorry.
Everyone adds vowels to it. Everyone adds vowels.
Like my last name, Talamonte. But she gets it. She's a powerhouse sales strategist turned chief revenue officer who teaches both men and women how to build businesses that work for them, not against them. She's the founder of Revenue Rascals, which we'll talk more about in a little bit. It's a movement and a podcast that's making revenue strategy fun and human and keeping it heart-centered. We're going to dive deep into how to stop hustling for your worth and lead with confidence and making money without losing yourself in the process. Does that sound like a plan? How are you doing today?
Hey, Kaitlyn, thank you so much for having me on. I'm so excited for this conversation.
Me too. Thank you so much for joining us. Our audience today, I know, is so excited to hear from you and what you're going to share, because the Unapologetic Podcast, they're women that are ready to rise up and live their best life in faith and freedom and finances, all the things. And I know we're going to challenge them a little bit because there's a word that I mentioned to you before we hit record, and that word is sales. And that word tends to make us feel a little slimy and iffy. And so I'm really excited to dive into that topic and really challenge the way not only my audience, but also myself, think about sales and how to really think about the larger picture and opportunities in life.
Awesome. I can't wait to talk about it all.
So I know you've been building this incredible brand the last couple of years, and you're in the middle of a transition yourself.
Yes.
And you've really helped lead some of the fastest growing businesses in the world. You've helped lead their sales and their strategies. But I know it didn't happen overnight. Can you give me and the audience a little bit of the story behind you stepping into your power as a leader and helping these businesses?
Yes, absolutely. Great question. So I started my career in sales. And the reason why I started it in sales is because everybody told me when I graduated college, you'd be great at sales and you can make a lot of money. And I was like, oh, that sounds good. And then I looked at like the types of jobs and the things that I could sell. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so fun. I can't wait to jump in. And so that is what I did straight out of college. And I remember my dad asking me when I was in college, because I have a degree in communication from UC Santa Barbara. And he asked me why I chose it in college. And I said, well, I'm learning organizational communication, negotiation, influence, persuasion, all the academia behind it. And I was like, Dad, I know I'm going to use this in life. Like, who would never use this, right? And as I reflect on the last 20 something years since I've had that conversation with my dad, is that is exactly what I've gone and done. I first went in as an individual contributor in big Fortune 500s. I worked for a small consulting firm. And then I will never forget this. I walked into the marketing department at one of the past companies that I worked for that was a Fortune 500. And I said, hey, I think I know what the missing link is. I'd like to create a sales enablement department for the organization to help marry marketing and sales, because that's the piece that goes in the middle, so that more people can sell. There was like a turnover of the really, really successful, like older generation of sales reps in that business. And all these new ones were coming up and we weren't going to sell the same way. And we needed enablement. And he just looked at me and he's like, yeah, I don't think we need that. And I'm like, huh. And that was literally the day that I said to myself, you're never going to get what you want in corporate America, and you need to go build what you want for yourself. So it was not very far after that, like maybe a handful of months, that I left corporate America and, multi six-figure sales job, great benefits, all the things that you think make your life like, oh, I made it, right? Like I arrived, right? And I remember walking into my husband's office and be like, so I'm quitting and I'm quitting. And he's like, you're quitting what? And I go, my job. And he's like, what are you going to do? And I was like, I'm going to start a sales training company. And he said, huh. And he's like, you could see him like processing. He's like, well, I think you'll be great at that, but how are you going to get clients? And I was like, I'll figure that out. And I just need 1 month. If I don't have a client within 30 days, I'll go back selling. It's so easy to get sales jobs, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, okay, go do it. And lo and behold, within 30 days, I had my first client and I was off to the races. And I have to thank the heyday of Facebook for that, because I got all of my initial, like maybe 200 clients out of a Facebook group that I had grown and been like pouring into. So that's how I exited corporate America and decided I wanted to start my business. But my business has had a lot of iterations based on the development of my skill set. So first I was like, it's COVID. I'll teach remote selling. Well, that was easy to sell. I mean, you were like selling like ice to Eskimos, and or not ice to Eskimos, but you know what I mean? So what I'm saying is that sometimes you catch the wave at the right part, at the right timing. And a lot of things, which is why I believe so wholeheartedly about revenue architecture, not just selling to sell, is like the timing of your product, the messaging of your product, and who you're going with and who you're sending that out to. And that just evolved over time of all my programs and my courses. And then I started working with larger businesses. And I'll never forget this day. I get this email from a client that I had done some like VIP days for. And he's like, hey, have you ever considered doing fractional CRO work? And I was like, let me think about that. So I thought about it and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I've been looking for. And that's how it all started with that one client. Now I've been a fractional CRO for 5 different companies. And it is by far my favorite thing I've ever done in my career, because you get to touch customer success. You get to touch marketing, sales, and RevOps. And when all of those things are working together is when you can really have the ultimate success.
Would you mind breaking down what is the definition of a fractional CRO? What does that mean?
Perfect.
What is it that you get to go in and do with these businesses?
Yes. So why I love it is it's a little bit different for every business depending on their needs. So there's 4 areas that are covered as a chief revenue officer. The first one is the sales function. The second is marketing. The third is customer success, account management. And the fourth is revenue operations. So what I like to do, if somebody says, I'm interested in working with you, I do a diagnostic that takes me about 30 days to figure out of those 4 categories, what's top priority that will move the needle. Then I present it to the CEO, we pick our first project, and we're off to the races. The reason why I like the business model for myself is that it's recurring revenue for myself. And I'm sure you can appreciate that as a subscription business, right? So you pay a retainer, but the work changes as the work changes, right? So for me, it provides the comfort of recurring revenue for a training and consulting company. And then I also get to do really, really big, impactful things for companies that aren't at the income level yet or revenue level to afford someone for $700,000 a year as a full-time chief revenue officer. I mean, that's a very generous comp package, but I mean, it's anywhere from 300 to 700, depending on like what you've baked into your agreement. So I really enjoy helping companies 20 million and below as a fractional chief revenue officer, because I feel like I can have the greatest impact at that level without red tape. And then it gives those organizations, those companies, the foundations they need to go be 100 million without having to wait to be 100 million to afford somebody.
That's incredible. I love it. So you mentioned that you just up and quit your corporate job. That is crazy. Would you say that you felt like Like that was like you had to? Like, would you have launched into this next chapter of life if you were like 1 foot in and 1 foot out?
No. And I just know that about myself. I'm like an all in person. I mean, it's really responsible to do it the other way where you do 1 foot in and 1 foot
1 foot
out.
out.
But I just know for myself that that just wouldn't work. So I just knew if I go all in, and I'm also time motivated, I forget who said this, but it's like whatever restraint on time you put is when it'll be completed. Right.
Mhm.
So like if you say, I'm going to give myself 6 months to launch this podcast, it will take you 6 months. If you say 3 months, it will take you 3 months. Like that is just the law of time. So when I left, I made it 30 days going to have a client. So I didn't mess around with logos, branding, website, all this other stuff that like would hold me back from getting that first client. I just poured into my Facebook group, networked like crazy. I left my house to find people, if you can believe that, and got my first client. So
That's awesome. Love that because you weren't 1 foot in the water, 1 foot out. You're all in. You didn't have it all together. It wasn't like you were waiting for everything to be perfect before you launched. You did it messy, crazy, nothing really prepared. You just went for it and you found your
Yep.
first client. You did it.
Yep. I mean, it was definitely just shooting from the hip. And I knew I was really good at what I did. So I felt confidently communicating that. And I just worked my network. And that's how it all started.
It. I want to make sure the ladies listening hear this. Like, is your skill set a CRO, sales, things like that? Maybe not. But what is your skill set? What is something you love to do that currently isn't working for you? And how can you make it work for you? Like, it doesn't have to be pretty or perfect or 100% thought out. Like, Michelle just knew what she loved to do and went and did it with nothing ready to go. Like, just jumped in full, like, bye corporate America. I'm going for it. I love that.
Yeah, and
I
I
was,
think that you can apply it. You can apply it to really anything. But I think what it really ties back to, Kaitlyn, is your belief in yourself, your confidence, and also your support system that's around you. So maybe you're not married, but it sure did help that, my husband was like, I got your back financially. We're fine. Like, we're not going to go do all the fancy things while you figure this out, but like, we're going to be okay. And it doesn't have to be necessarily financial support. It can be a community. Like you've built an incredible community for LadyBoss. And like, I think that's why it works so well is because people are being supported by others that want the same things. So it's really mission critical to have the people around you that are going to, let me see, not force is the wrong word. They're not going to accept anything other than your best. And that is who I am surrounded by. And if you're not that person, we're just not friends. So it's just kind of how it is.
it is so true. And I'm a firm sayer. And it's like you said, the Lady Boss community is amazing. And it is a group of women here to support and encourage and challenge each other. And that is why it's so successful. And sometimes it's not your kids or your spouse or your grandmom or your dad or your aunt or your uncle or your best friends because they don't understand what drives you. They don't understand your why or why you're on the mission. It's like husbands. Okay, I want to lose 20 pounds. And the husband's like, well, I like my fried chicken for dinner. And so they're like, I don't know why we're doing this. Well, because I over here know I need to feel better. I want to feel better. I want to love myself. I want to love the way my clothes fit my body. So that's my why. Where the husband's like, well, I'm fine. I want my fried chicken, right? And so they're not going to be your biggest hype person. It's not saying they don't love you per se. That's not what they're saying at all. They just don't understand why this is the path you're taking, right? And so making sure you surround yourself, whether it's direct family, which is not always them, or a community like the Lady Boss community, like the Revenue Rascals that you're building. Surrounding yourself in a community of people that are on that path that you have a passion for is so huge, so mission critical, as you said.
Yeah. And it has to come from inside first. I truly, truly believe that. And, specifically to sales skills, when somebody would come to me and either wants to improve their sales skills or they just, like you had said in the opening, just they're allergic to sales, it feels salesy, all of these different things, you build your confidence around selling by doing. And I believe that applies to every single thing in your life, parenting, weight loss, personal development, business, career, anything. So if you don't just start doing, so for example, you do that first sales call, you get a no, and maybe you're even embarrassed. Maybe it was horrible. Who knows, right? But you throw in the transcript into ChatGPT and you say, where could I improve? What can I do better? What does this tell me? And in 45 seconds, you have feedback from a pretty nice bot, because they are pretty nice if you're nice to them, to give you, some feedback, right? And you can even go a step further. Like, I have so many free resources out there. You can use my frameworks and submit my framework with the actual prompt in the chat GPT to get some feedback to align it with a heart-centered sales strategy. I'm just talking about this because it goes for everything. Like, you don't know if you can lose weight or if you can run that, or if you could run the marathon, both of which I've done, until you start doing and building your confidence through some micro failures. And I always say that failures or no's inform the next success or yes.
That. I've heard you say in our conversation that you love to help people stop doing everything and really start thinking like leaders of their life and of their business. Can we talk what that really looks like?
Yeah, my favorite word in the world is no. And it took me a long time.
I love it.
It took me a long time to say that. I think that a lot of women, I would say most women, go through what I would call their people pleasing phase of life. And for some of us, that's 6 months, and others, it's 25 years, right? And it took me a long time to realize that I had to get really good at saying no so that I could really focus to have the success. And so first of all, boundaries, no. Like, if something came to me right now, if I got like a text message from a friend that said, hey, do you want to go to this party on Thursday night or something? Like, I would look at my Friday to see what I need to do in order to move the needle for my new podcast that I've released. If I can do both, then I'll say yes. If I can't, I know my priority right now is that podcast. So I'm just saying, and I wouldn't say, no, friend, I'm not interested. I would just say, hey, I really appreciate the invite. I really need your support right now because I'm going to be working on my podcast on Friday. Can you invite me next time? I'm not going to be able to make it. So then that falls over so much better so that you can stay disciplined. And like, that goes for, your women in your community, you're trying to get stronger and lose weight. It's saying no to, a dinner out where maybe you can't find what you want to eat there. Or maybe you say, hey, I'm going to meet you I'm going to meet you in the beginning and like head out. Or you ask them kindly, hey, can we go eat at XYZ restaurant? Because that actually like goes with what I'm eating right now, and I would really appreciate it. Right? So just boundaries and your no's and asking people to support you is really, really the key. And that just, oh my gosh, it changes everything. And then when I say stop doing everything, it also is tracking. Like, if you're anything that you're tracking for success, it could be your career, business, sales, whatever it is, weight loss, you have to know what works and what doesn't. And you have to be able to apply the 80-20 principle, which is 20% of what you do gives you 80% of your success. So tracking it and obsessing over that gives you so much time freedom, and it helps you hit your goals so much faster.
Yes, I love the 80-20. It is so true.
It's so true.
It is so. I actually, I recently just heard a perspective that was about reaching for your dreams and your goals and your ambitions, but questioning before you even get started, what are you willing to give up to achieve those goals and those dreams?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, that kind of hurt when I first heard it. In fact, I think you were there. You were there when we heard it. It kind of hurt when I first heard it because I was like, well, do I really have to ask that? Because that's a hard question to ask. But then I realized really quickly I was overcomplicating the question. Did you maybe do the same, or what were your thoughts when you heard it?
Yeah. So that app, I absolutely remember that. And that hit me hard too. I think for me, I don't want to believe that I have to give a bunch up if I'm actually in true alignment for what it is that I want. I think you give up when you are prescribing to someone else's hopes, dreams, and goals. So for me, if I have to start giving up things that make me happy, I am on the wrong path. I'm on the wrong path. And that is my gut check. Like, there are so many different types of businesses I have thought about buying, or different ways I could offer services in my business. And the first thing I always asked myself, I was like, is very similar to that question, is what will I have to give up in order to do this? And I'm willing to do that. And if it's truly in alignment, it's easy to give something up. right? So
Yes.
I'll use a non-business example is lived in an area of New York for a few years that was like very sedentary and they didn't move their bodies. They drank a lot. Like this is a generalization of the city. And it wasn't really like in alignment for me. I'm like from Southern California. I'm tan most of the year. I'm outside. I'm happy. I'm moving, like all of the things, right? So that those values weren't aligned. So as hard as I tried, the environment got to me. And so I gained a bunch of weight and I'm a smaller frame. So I'm only 5'2". So you gain any weight on 5'2", it like shows in a hot second. So when I lived there, I gained 15 pounds, which is like pretty substantial, like would reflect as like 30 to the average size, like average height woman. So when I moved to Park City, Utah, I realized it had happened, and Park City is like very similar to Southern California of like the value of outdoors and moving your body and living a healthy life. And so I invested in a trainer back in January for food and workouts. And, I stopped drinking for 6 months, basically. I love alcohol. I love to drink. I love to go out. I know you're not supposed to say that anymore, but I'm still an 80s child who grew up in the 90s and early 2000s. I love a cocktail. Okay. That's all I got to say. So now, when I had to give that up for my goal, it was easy to give up. So I actually didn't feel like I had to give anything up because I was going to gain something that was way more important to me. So I feel like that is how you have to shift your perspective specifically to that quote. And I actually dig my heels in, absolutely refuse to prescribe to the hustle and the burnout culture anymore. I've been through it. I've had multiple burnouts in my life, and it's like such a hard line right now. And maybe it's some wisdom that comes in my 40s, but if you're listening and you're under 40, just know you don't have to do it.
You don't at all. I love that perspective because it's so true. It's not a matter of if it brings you joy, give it up, right? Because then you're not in alignment. You really have to have that mind, body, soul alignment if you're reaching for your dreams and your goals, or are they really actually your goals? I actually just had a conversation with my husband just along these lines too, where I'm like, okay, that's your goal, but is it really your goal? Because you've got to ask, are you able to give what it takes up to get there? Or does it look a little different? Are you still holding on to that childhood dream, or is this a real dream? And what steps are you willing to take to get there? And it's a challenging question because
It is.
sometimes it means tying it back to saying no, being okay. Sometimes what you give up is those dinners with your friends. But if you're okay with that and it gets you to your goals, then it's worth giving
Yeah.
up, right?
Yeah. And also, like going out, drinking, and eating is not the only way to build friendships. So, how about you go play pickleball, pick up golf? Like, sometimes you have to reinvent what it looks like, to maintain friendships in your scenario.
Yes. There was definitely a time in my life where the friendships were going out and drinking and sitting in a razor, which was fun, and drinking some more. And now it's like, I always tell my husband, like, we don't work to pay bills and sit and drink and eat. We work to play. Like, we're hunting, we're fishing, we're on the beach, we're traveling, we're doing all these things that are engaging and more active than just being sedentary and sitting here. And like, in fact, like, I am a big person that like, I'll say no to going somewhere now. And if I know it's like the group that we're just going to sit there and talk because I'm not going to be able to be there. I don't enjoy it. I'm not connected. I'm thinking about all these other things I need to be doing, and I'd rather be doing than just sitting here with a cocktail in my hand. Now, don't get me wrong. Like, I would love to sit and relax on the beach occasionally. Okay. Like, but like, let's just sit outside and doing nothing for like hours. That's not my cup of tea because I'd rather. So that's something
It's also your season of life too, right? Your season of life. Like you are in go mode for your business and your personal brand and just the priorities shift. And I think that's okay because we all evolve. We can't all be the same person we were when we were 20. That would be weird.
No, exactly. And so speaking of evolving, you're actually in the middle of a transition right now where you are kind of stepping a little bit back, correct me if I'm wrong, from the CRO world and stepping into Revenue Rascals, which is your new movement podcast that just launched today, which is October 14th when we are recording it. Can you tell us about that transition and all the things you're doing?
Yeah. So, funny thing, and I think this is a really important piece of the puzzle to bring up is I was chatting with my mom. She's like one of my besties, my biggest cheerleader. I'm really lucky for that. And I was like, Mom, what did I want to be when I grew up? Because I just like seriously can't remember. And she was like, well, you wrote it in your baby book, and like whips it out and starts like, all the things. And apparently I wrote down all the way through 8th grade. I guess I got over it in high school, which that's actually a pretty long
Yeah.
stretch to put it up till 8th grade, is that I wanted to be a talk show host. Yes, which is really random. Okay. Super random. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Because it has been on my heart to launch this podcast, which I look at as a media arm, right? For the last like 4 years at least. Like I love podcasts. I listen to all kinds of different podcasts. It's my favorite thing to do. So sometimes you want to create what you love too.
Yes.
But what really got me and what made me want to basically ungate all of the strategies that people usually charge me 6 figures for on this podcast, or that I charge them 6 figures for, is I had this moment where I'm like, why am I charging all of the businesses right now, like the smaller businesses, to get this information? If I could just put it out there into the world and have sponsors pay for my podcast, that seems like the best capitalist thing I've ever heard of in my life, right? The ones who are established can pay for it. The access to the information goes to those smaller companies. So that was one thing that was on my heart, because I have never gone into a business where I wasn't like, wow, this is going to take a hot minute, right? Like every business has something that needs to be improved on. So my like prayer and hope for the podcast is that business owners, revenue leaders, entrepreneurs, they like study it. They say, hey, did you listen to episode 22? I'll send it to you. You should listen to that, right? So I envisioned it that way on purpose. And then also I realized that if I just keep being a fractional CRO, or maybe I was to take on like a full-time role as a CRO, that really limits my exposure and my ability to help people, right? And so I'm not going to stop acting as a fractional CRO. I'll keep like a very limited client roster on that so I can double down on Revenue Rascals. But really where my heart is right now is teaching other sales and growth experts how to do exactly what I do as a fractional CRO. Because if I can multiply myself, then, and I have the media arm, like, I mean, I can die a happy woman. Like, I'm just like, I did it. Like, everybody got what they needed, and I was able to make a really, really big difference. And I'm not like a morbid person, but I do think about my death in like a positive way. And so I know it's kind of like a weird way to go on this, but I already wrote exactly how I want my funeral to be, and I documented it, and I have people assigned to executing things. Hopefully they outlive me. If not, there's backup. Actually did that. And I want it to be this big celebratory party. I want it to be this huge party on the beach. I want people to be like, wow, I remember when we were struggling to get over 10 million, and I remember what Michelle did for us. Or, hey, I remember I really wanted to start that business and I was so scared. And I remember Michelle just, making me feel like I could do it. Or, even when Michelle was busy with work, when I had a personal problem, she showed up. Like, I want that to be celebrated at that party. And so that's why I shifted from just concentrating on selling services and training, like underneath my original arm of the Startup Sales Leadership Institute, is Revenue Rascals is out there now with the capability of having a much bigger move.
I love that in so many ways, because first and foremost, like, yeah, we're not guaranteed tomorrow, right? We're guaranteed now and doing the best. And that's something with unapologetic and the rebrand we've done this season is like, I am here to help empower women to rise, to really stop playing small and find their fire, whether it's, finding their confidence or losing the weight or starting a business, like help them be who God created them to be. And I really love the fact that you touched on what you wanted to be when you were younger. And it gives me goosebumps, because when I was younger, I wanted to be a singer. And I had a song. It was a Christian song by a band called Delirious. It was shout to the north and south, sing to the east and the west. And I look at my life now and the podcast and all the things I'm doing with LadyBoss, and I'm like, I'm not on stage singing, but I'm on stage shouting to the north or east and the west, like I'm supposed to be doing. Like, our vision shifted and changed. You're not a talk show host, but you are a talk show host. I'm not a singer, but I am a singer. And it's like the bigger purpose for our lives, like we knew when we were younger without knowing when we were younger. Like, isn't that wild?
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. And I feel really blessed that I've had the opportunity to actually chase my dreams. And it took so much work and effort, but it was worth every single ounce.
Yes, it is, especially once you start stepping into that purpose and living that fulfilling life. So the
It makes
show,
all the
as you
difference.
know, is called Unapologetic for a reason because we talk about owning who you are and walking in your God-given purpose. And
Hmm.
so many women, money is still a hard topic. I know even for me, I've battled the money topic. How do you help people who have the perspective of guilt and fear around money and selling themselves or their product?
Yeah, that is a really, really great question. And so I actually have a theory that I can't prove, but I can prove because I've talked to so many people. Okay.
Ready for it.
And that is, yeah, yeah. So there's something called tiny traumas. That's a psychology word. Now, I had no idea psychologists use this. I thought I made it up, but I didn't. So I guess nothing's an original idea, but tiny trauma. Okay. Tiny traumas. And it means it's not like this huge thing in your life that you remember as this traumatizing experience, but there are instances or moments where things happen to you that either pull your money in or push your money away, or you feel like you were screwed over, or you didn't get as much on the ROI as you thought. So, all of these little tiny traumas around money and purchasing form our opinions. And so, what happens, what we do is all of that builds up and we create a set of assumptions. So, when we go into environments, so for example, let's say you're selling leadership training and the cost is $50,000 for a leadership training, but you paid for a training 5 years ago of a similar amount and didn't feel you got $50,000 worth of value out of it. So what happens is when you're in the sales conversation, you start getting really uncomfortable around asking for the 50K because somebody told you who helped you build your business that you have to charge 50K in order to be profitable and keep your margins. But you, A, didn't entirely believe with that. And two, you've been screwed over before. So you're out of alignment and you have to fix that alignment before you can go and ask for the sale. So what you'll see is like at the end of a sales call, they won't even talk about pricing. They'll just be like, okay, great. I'm going to go ahead and send you a proposal. Right. Because then they don't actually have to ask for the sale. And I have seen I'm a big buyer. I buy all kinds of stuff. I've been in masterminds, programs, all the things. Right. And I have been sold to by some of the biggest powerhouses probably in the industry. And I would say 70% of them will not talk about pricing in this environment. When they can look you in the eye, they send it to you. And I started noticing this pattern, and I was right. Once I got, really close with those people, they absolutely had tiny traumas like around their relationship with money and experiences and purchases. So once you understand all of these things are building your assumptions, you can literally write them all down and start to replace them with a different thought. And so, for example, it could be $50,000 is too much money for leadership training. There's no way we can get the worth or the value. Replacement thought, it's just $50,000 and my plan is to retain the top 3 leaders in the organization. And if they have to replace those, they're going to pay $300,000 in recruiting fees. I'm giving them a steal,
Yes.
right? And now you start to reprocess. So, and I've seen this a lot, like especially in the online coaching space where women who have never had businesses before, who were maybe making $30, $40 an hour doing some kind of job. And then a coach comes in and says, great, you're an expert and you're going to go charge 50K or 20K or whatever it is. And there's such massive misalignment in that. So I always say, you have to prove it to yourself, just like I said with confidence. So start with a $5,000 offer, sell it, over deliver. $10,000, sell it, over deliver. And it goes for anything that you do in life. Like you can't go from 0 to $1 million overnight unless you're got some crazy strategy. I don't know. So let me know if you can do that in 24 hours. I'd love to know. So you have to start stacking your milestones, right? And when you stack your milestones and you achieve them, you get very confident.
Yes. So with LadyBoss, we have what we call the 4, and it's working on your state, your shape, sparkle, and success. And the success is all about your goals. And we talk about small goals, big goals, and your big, scary, hairy, God-sized, audacious goals. And that's exactly what you're talking about with the goals. but with finances. And it's wild because I want the ladies to see, like, it all connects. It's like those God-sized goals are God-sized goals because right now you laugh like that's not possible. I'm not going to be a singer on stage. But as you stack those big goals, as you prove it to yourself, that God-sized, big, scary, hairy, audacious goal actually becomes a reality. Just
Yeah.
like, no,
And Kaitlyn, you could throw an event and sing on your own stage.
I
So
probably
there.
will. I'll sing on this podcast from time to time.
To hear that.
Yes. I love the idea. Ladies, it's really about changing that perspective. It's like, I hear way too often, it drives me nuts, but it's the mindset. $55 for a bag of protein is too expensive. Well, there's 30 servings in there. It's under $2 a serving. I don't know about you, Michelle, but I'll go spend $5 to $7 for coffee real quick.
Mm-hmm.
A quick meal that I'm running late on, so I end up in the drive-thru. And now I'm spending hundreds of dollars a month and not $50 a month on something that's healthy and fuels my body. Or I'll struggle sometimes with buying a course that's $500 or maybe $15,000. But in reality, yeah, it's $500 or $15,000, or maybe it's $100,000 offer you're looking at buying. But it could make me double that, triple that, quadruple that in the skill set I'll learn. How much money have we dump in the college system, and did it pay off? It sounds like for you, the college system paid off for you quite a bit, didn't it? Or no?
Yeah, I loved my college experience and I wouldn't give it back. I was a sorority girl, Pi Phis, if anybody's listening. Like, I absolutely loved it. But like, unfortunately, I don't think it's the same thing it was when 20 years ago when I went to college. And, you know, we're like in our home, we're not expecting our kids to go to college. Like we think there's a lot of different paths. If they want to go and it makes sense, great. But if they don't, like, and like my son needs to be standing up, walking, working with his hands.
Not in a class.
He is best suited for a trade school and 2 years of business school at a community college. And he can be a welder, electrician, and own an incredibly lucrative AI resistant business. And he won't start his life out with $100,000 in debt or dad and I having $100,000 less in our pocket.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, and like, if you're going to spend the money, like you said, either if you have to go to school for that skill set, then go to the school and find a school that specializes in it. Otherwise, go find a course or something that is your passion. You don't need to go to college to learn real estate if real estate investing is your passion. You don't have to go to college to necessarily learn CRO work if CRO work's your passion. Go find a course or a Michelle that's happy to give you all the resources.
Yeah, it's, you know, it's huge. And like, I think it goes for any goal you have. Any goal. And one thing I love to say is that motivation does absolutely nothing for you. Discipline is where the change is.
Yes.
And I think
Because
it's extremely profound.
Motivation.
That's why you
have the discipline. You have to tie it to habits and build it in your routine.
100%. And like when I redid all of my professional branding photos for Revenue Rascals, you know, I was at like I had lost all the weight. I'm super strong. I can actually see the muscles in my legs and my glutes now. And I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. I'm like, I'm wearing sexy outfits for this shoot. You know, like I was so excited. I was like, I'm not covering this up, right? I worked so hard for this. And, you know, but I also loved that was the sub story to the photos of the relaunch of Revenue Rascals, because it is a movement. You know, I want people who are listening right now, maybe you're a sales or growth expert, you're like, oh, I'm so curious about this. The really cool thing about this is you're not a corporate, you're not a corporate cog in the wheel. You get to show up in your cool outfits, like your fun branding. You get to bring life to organizations. And like, I mean, I remember I used to have to wear nylons to work. Like, that's how old I am. Like, if you wore a skirt, you had to wear nylons underneath. And I'm like, what the heck? And now I'm like, cool, I'm wearing a mini skirt with no nylons. Yeah, exactly. And I want my daughter to see it too. Like, oh, mom's in her 40s and she's still confident AF and she's going out there and doing this thing. And like, you know, look at how my dad looks at her. Like, he's so proud of her. Like, these are important messages. And I also strongly feel like, I don't know what your magic number is for weight. You don't know what mine is. Like, I actually am more around like the strength and the way that my clothes fit, like after losing the initial weight. But for me, if I'm not at my peak physical condition, then I'm not peak in my head. And then I'm not peak anywhere in my life. So for me, I know my physical fitness is the foundation for all joy in my entire life, and nothing will get in that way.
Oh, I love that. You've set those boundaries. You've said no to like make that a priority for you. For me,
Yes.
so if you know a little bit about my journey, I used the 80-20 rule, and 80% was nutrition, 20% was fitness and how I moved my body. So this is the first time I've gone through a weight loss journey where I didn't spend a lot of time in the gym. I enjoy it, don't make a lot of time for it, but I do make time for how I fuel my body, making sure I get those nutrients in. And that's what works for me. And it's been great. You just have to find what works for you and those non-negotiables so you can show up in your peak fitness area. Whether it's
Yeah. I mean, everybody is so different.
yes. And then you rock it with the confidence and you keep going. I saw those outfits when I saw you in person. Heck yeah.
This older, like conservative woman came up to me and she's like, I can see your knickers.
Oh my goodness. That is so
It was
funny.
so funny. And I was like dying laughing. But she was like, I just love it though.
That is so great. Like you do it. It gives other people permission because for whatever reason, we're in a permission driven world and people think they need permission. You don't to do something like that. And it's all about us setting examples for those around us, our spouses, our kids. Like I have 2 boys. And so sometimes they're like, come on, mom, really? But I love watching my kids show up more confidently because they see it. Or even like my oldest is a teenager and he's in high school. And so he's got all the girl problems. And he's had girls come to him with their problems where they're like, oh, I'm going to skip a meal or I'm not doing this because I'm fat. And for the record, no, they're not. They're beautiful. But like, that's what they believe about themselves. And my teenager will be like, look, this is my mom. This is her before and after. Like, learn to love. Like, he gives them the whole pep talk. And I'm like, that right there, that's changing the generation, your generational trait. And for the better and for the good that the world needs. There's so
Oh
much.
my gosh, 100%. I just got the chills. Thinking of your son actually doing that. Like, what a great young man, first of all. And second of all, like, you're absolutely right. It just takes one person to change your perspective on your relationship with food and body image that shapes like your entire life. So your son could be that person and have that conversation with these women. You know, the beauty standards in Texas, similar to the beauty standards in Utah, are pretty much next level. So we need to ground ourselves and have people we care about remind us of exactly what your son just did.
Nope, we do for sure. All right, Michelle, we're almost to our time, but I want to ask you a few rapid fire questions before we wrap up. Is that okay?
Yay! Sounds
All
great.
right.
Okay,
Let's
I'm ready.
roll. What is one piece of advice you'd give a woman who's building her dream right now?
Make sure that you are building your dream and not what someone else's dream is, or you will fall out of alignment and you either fail or it'll be way harder than you ever needed it to be.
All right. The biggest money mindset shift you have ever made.
You know what? So for me, making money has always been super easy for me. Like making money, I feel like I could go print it if I wanted to, frankly. Okay. The thing with me is keeping it or managing it so it doesn't go out the bottom of the bucket. Okay. And so I consider myself quite good at this now, but it took a long time and I had to face the bank account. I had to check the credit cards. I had to meet with my financial planner, got to talk to the tax guy, had to talk to my attorney. So I had to face every single one of my fears. And business taught me how to face those fears. And I'm so glad I'm on the other side of it. But I was sick to my stomach for like a year trying to heal my own relationship with my spending habits and my management habits. And it will always be something I have to keep myself in check, but that doesn't reduce my success if I'm aware of it and I face it.
I hear tiny trauma galore right there. You're addressing them.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Final one. How are you living life unapologetically right now?
Unapologetically, I feel like I'm breaking all the rules and I'm going to win. So this is the thing. People in our industry who get their success from online businesses, right? If it doesn't matter if it's direct to consumer or if it's B2B like myself, you're told there's certain ways that your business can be successful and make money. right? And you have to do it this way. Now, as a revenue architect, there are some laws that you do need to follow depending on what your goals are. But for me, I'm going to go against the odds and say I'm going to be number one in my categories on my podcast in 90 days. And I'm going to secure multiple six figures of ad revenue in my first 6 months. So that's going to happen. And anybody who knows anything about podcasting or media companies, what I just said is like really difficult to do. But I feel so strongly that that is exactly what's going to happen and that I'm going to break those rules and I'm not going to apologize for it. And I'm going to tell everybody I can do it.
Yes, because you can. I love it. All right, Michelle, where can the audience go find you and Revenue Rascals, the podcast?
Yes.
Where's all the things?
Okay, so on the 14th, my first episode today when this is recording has dropped. So depending on when you go, you'll see either one episode or a bunch. And we are on every major podcast channel. So Apple, Spotify, iHeartMedia, YouTube, all underneath the same handle, which is Revenue Rascals.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We'll make sure to have those links in the show notes, ladies. So go check it out. Go give Michelle a follow. And if this conversation hit, share it with a friend who needs a reminder that she doesn't have to hustle for her worth. Thank you so much, Michelle, for being here with us today. I really appreciate it. And for showing every woman that we can lead with strategy, soul, and in alignment. And when we do, we win in every way. Thank you so much. And I hope you ladies have an amazing rest of your day. Bye.
I'm showing up as the woman I was created to be. I don't have to be perfect. I just have to be willing. One woman's courage gives another permission. I'm done waiting for someday. My time is now. I'm walking in faith, not fear. God's plan for me is bigger than my fear. No more hiding who I am. This is the real me, and I'm not apologizing for her.
Thank you for tuning in to the Unapologetic Podcast. If today's episode fired you up, hit that subscribe button so you never miss a new one. And hey, leave a quick review, or sharing this with a friend helps us reach more women who need this message. Until next time, keep rising, keep shining, and keep living unapologetically.